This will be a good video for you to see. These are sale barn animals. They've been on my property about 3 weeks. I've worked them with a dog 5 or less times. Crowder's worked them once, and then 2 other dogs have worked them. They do kind of flock together as a group, even though there's 2 goats and 4 sheep. Because they've been together for the 3 weeks that they've been here, I've had them quarantined. Don't know their history on dogs before. I don't know if they were exposed to dogs before I bought them, or if they've had real bad experiences with dogs or what. So I have no idea about that. This will give you a good idea of what he's going to look like and what he's going to need when you go to dog break in cattle that are not used to being moved by dogs. I would encourage you to do the dog breaking in the smallest area that the cattle are comfortable in. As you can see, these sheep are standing still. I'm going to call them sheep even though there's 2 goats in there. They're standing still. The dog probably is in contact with them because they're watching him. So he's holding them in that position a little bit. I did not ask him to do that. All I asked him to do was down, and I just left him there. They don't want to come to me. They don't want to be near me. They don't want to be near him. And so this is going to be kind of what it's going to look like when you take him to cattle the first few times. Again, I would do this in the smallest area that you have that your cattle are comfortable in. I prefer to break mine up in groups, in smaller groups, just depending on how they react to the dog. If you have a bunch of cattle that are wanting to literally chase the dog, I would break it up into the smallest groups that you can to get them used to it. Groups that they're big enough that they feel safe. I think 10 is a good number. If they're yearlings, they're weanlings, they're just curious, they're not really trying to hurt the dog, then bigger groups are absolutely fine. Just depends on what size area you have and how many cattle you have to break in. It's always easier to take your dog out to pasture when your cattle know to move off of a dog in the first place. And he definitely will bite if he needs to. And in fact, sometimes he bites a little too much. So that's what I'll be getting a hold of him for in here. Is he really needs to tone down his attitude. He needs to have his listening ears on. If I tell him there, stop, or down, he needs to take it on the first time, or else I'm going to get after him. So there's a lot of times I'm going to be telling you, watch your livestock. What are your livestock doing? If your livestock's in a panic because of what the dog is doing, then you need to get a hold of the dog. Push him further out off the livestock, slow him down a little bit, responding better to you, because a lot of times it's that prey drive, that adrenaline. He does have a lot of prey drive, so he gets sucked into the movement. If cattle are running, he wants to run too. If sheep are running, he wants to run too. And he is trying to get control of them, but he's a baby dog, he's young, he's green, he doesn't have that kind of experience yet, so he usually doesn't get far out off of them. He gets kind of in the middle of stuff, and he wants to get a hold of one instead of having the big picture in mind. So you being able to push him out, get that good down on him, or that good stop, that's going to be what helps you get control of the livestock. So there's a balancing act. You've got to watch the dog, you've got to watch the livestock, and you've got to put yourself in a position that you can influence both in a positive way. I'm pretty happy with him for staying over there in a down this entire time, because he sure could have taken a few steps forward. He could have gotten up, he could have moseyed around. He is definitely very impulsive. I used him to bring the cattle up, and I actually used him to put the sheep and goats in here. So I was able to put some schooling on him a little bit first in a controlled manner before we came to work in here. So always when you go to work, state of mind of the dog. That's a good state of mind for him. He's in control of his emotions. You can tell because he's not impulsively getting up. He's not moving around. He's not sniffing. He's not trying to pick up poop off the ground or get into trouble. He is in work state of mind. He looks fairly relaxed over there, but I guarantee if I called him to me, he would get up and come to me. And so that's kind of how you know if his mind is elsewhere, or he's only paying attention to the livestock and he's waiting important, and you start by sending him fewer paces. So if your cattle are 100 yards away, walk to 25 yards before you send the dog. And that's until you know for sure he's going to go every time with the right attitude, and then you back that up to 30, 35, 50 paces, and then eventually you're sending him longer and longer distances. It doesn't happen overnight. I have sent him a fair distance, but I also knew that my cattle were going to group together and they were going to go ahead and come on if he was in the right place. So he didn't have a lot of opportunity to just mess up and split one off and chase, because they don't usually do that kind of thing. So I don't want these sheep broke to come directly to me immediately. I want to try to keep them pretty fresh. That's the reason I bought new stock to work, is my old ones are pretty broke. So what I'm going to do is I want to get out of his way when he's correct, let him work, and then before he's got the sheep all the way to me, I'm going to stop him and then probably call him off and reset. So I want them headed towards me, but I don't want them on my legs or really probably within 10 feet of me. And that's just going to depend on how all this goes. Now, I may or may not have to change things up as we work. Right now I'm going to start off working. This is just a piece of hose, and so it's just about 2 foot long. So I could slap it on my leg if I need to kind of deter him or make a noise. You can see he probably looked over here. And then I'll have 2 of them, so one of them I can toss at him if I need to. Like if I step into him and he's really ignoring my pressure, I can toss that towards him, and that kind of makes that statement like I can still get you. So just making that point to him that I'm always going to be able to get him, or I'm always going to be able to make the stop, and then getting that stop with my movement, not necessarily my command, right? So all of this is pressure and release. Same thing I tell everybody all the time. I need to be able to get the stop physically, no matter what comes out of my mouth, right? So if I do say the STOP command, I need to make it happen. But it's very important for me to be able to get that to happen without ever having to use the command. And that's a little bit confusing until you get used to doing it. So I'm just going to start working him around, and we're going to see what we've got.
Gonna call him with me to start off. I want to make sure he's listening and not just ready to jump up and go. I'm gonna get a little bit of control on him, put some pressure on him because I asked him to down and he did not. So I just continue with pressure until he downs. I release the pressure on him, and then I'm gonna look at my stock and decide what I need to do with my dog. And I'm gonna send him on the come by side, put a little pressure on his shoulder there. He gets up nice and slow, that's fine. Let him go. And I just give him the hay command because I had told him to there. I didn't want him to go all the way around those livestock just yet. I wanted them to get a feel for him. So I put the pressure on him until he stops, and then I release the pressure on him, and I move to a position to where I can send him around to the stop again. So he's diddling around, and I'm just putting pressure on him until I get his attention. Now I'm going to back up off of him a little bit. I'm going to send him on the away this time. I want them to see him coming, so they have the opportunity to move. So that was a nice approach for him, but as soon as they started to move, you could see how he got sucked into the movement instead of trying to arc around and get control of them. So that was what he got pressured for there. So I'm telling him come by. So he needs to go towards the heads, which now he is. So he's doing a fairly good job right there. I'm going to put a little pressure on him and support him. I have to get out of the way of these livestock so that they have somewhere to go. Right there. So every time you can see he's still continuing to push in on me on the there. So that's why I'm walking at him. So when I tell him there, he needs to check up. And he needs to really come to a stop and assess where the livestock need to go. Sending him on the away so that I can get them looking at me there, because they're looking at me. And see how he's continuing to push in, so pressure on him him until he stops and gives me that what I'm looking for, and then release the pressure on him. So send him on the way, and I'm moving, getting out of the way of the livestock. And I'm in a position that I can help him if he needs it. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just putting that forward pressure on his shoulder, pushing him into that corner to get them out. He's going to have to face him up this time. He did kind of pick a fight a little bit there on the one that was staring at him instead of letting go and going into the corner, but we got it under control. So like I said, being able to get him stopped is very, very important here. As long as you know you can get him stopped, just get him stopped, let everything regroup, and then reassess where you need to send the dog. Backing away from the livestock if he's correct, giving him somewhere to bring them. Right there, he did a nice job. I put my arms up and he actually did get to that pressure. He's not stopping completely on the there, and he's just a green dog, so that's just something you're going to struggle with. This dog likes to push in on the livestock. He likes to keep stuff moving. You're probably always going to fight him a little bit on stuff like that. So you can see right there where he had a lot more momentum, I had to come through the livestock to get that stopped. The more momentum he's got, the harder it's going to be to get him listening to commands. Right there, he just kind of tried to blow through and go the wrong way. I'm backing away, giving him a chance to get control here. As long as his attitude is correct, his body language is nice, the livestock are not worried, I'm going to give him a chance. Then I told him there, and he just continued to barrel through, so I come through the stock and get him stopped. And then regroup, start again. So it's a lot of the same thing. Regroup, start again. Regroup, start again. Get it stopped, reassess, regroup, start again. So I'm watching the stock when they're looking at me, and he may be sniffing and kind of relieving pressure, but that's okay. Sending on to come by. Letting him go as long as he's trying to get him under control. Right there, they're looking at me. And hey, because he did not check up, and I finally did throw that at the 10 wall there to get his attention. This dog can take a lot of pressure. He is a pretty tough dog to work. He will push on you. He pushes on me. That's why I'm not cutting him any slack in this ordeal, because if I did, there was no way that these livestock were going to be under control. So again, on those theirs, if he's not nice and crisp, I'm putting some pressure on him. He's veering a little bit towards the center, so I just put a little pressure on that inside shoulder to push him where he needed to be. That was a really nice roll out there. And I'm putting a little bit of pressure on my stock too, just to kind of show him I'm doing my part of this as well. Right there. That's perfect. And then he wants to push in. So I give him the stop command. And he pushes in again. So then I pressure him harder. He chooses to sit. But at this point, he's already kind of pushed those livestock. He's pushed into their bubble just enough that they start to leave. But it was a pretty good session, so I went ahead and I told him that'll do and called him to me before they fully escaped.
There was only a few instances where he started to kind of delve into that little bit of prey drive. The sheep were pretty good about sticking together. I had the one that came over here a couple of times. The goat challenged him just a little bit, one of the goats, and he handled it fairly well, but that's another a little point of contention there, I guess, is once he handled that, he got overly anxious about covering the rest of the group and trying to keep them all together. So instead of just biting and holding his ground and staying in one place to assess the situation. He was biting and then trying to cover everything, and he was just a little bit too wound up in prey drive at that moment, so that's why I got onto him there. Not at all for the bite, that was correct. It really, some of the problems that I see with him, which is wanting to come inside, on the inside, between me and the livestock, coming on an inside flank to get control instead of going through along the fence. He really didn't do that there. I think I had him in a good headspace though, and that is really going to be what makes or breaks it for you with this particular dog. He does have that, just if he sees it, he wants it, he's going to go get it, and he's kind of like, screw you guys, I do what I want. And so if you can really get into his head about it and let him know that no way at any time is that ever going to happen for you here, then you're going to have a lot of success with him. But that's the hard part, and that's the part some people really don't like about this breed, is that sometimes when you get one that's got a lot of instinctive drive, it's really hard to get into their head about how you're actually a team and that he's taking direction from you instead of you just facilitating his access to livestock. I was able to come through the middle of the livestock to give him a correction which he needed. So a lot of times you're going to see that with healers too, is they get in contact with the livestock, and then in their mind it's all just push, push, push. So once they get that forward momentum going, the livestock are moving, they really just like to keep that forward momentum, and sometimes that's not what you need. You need your stock to just settle or be slow, and so I had to come through the middle there and get onto him for that. Not a big deal. I hope that translates some stuff for you and can help you when you go home, what it should look like on your non-broke cattle, and kind of give you some ideas for how to start him at home.